Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chev Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayati Nashtupraishu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhaktasya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishti. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 19, a description of the island of Jambudvip. Text number 23 onwards. Kalpayusham sthana jayat punarbhava Chanayusham bharat pujayo varam Shanen marten kritam manasvinaha Sanyasya sanyatya bhyam padam hare. The demigods are further praying. A short life in the land of Bharatvarsha is preferable to a life achieved in Brahma Loka for millions and billions of years. Because even if one is elevated to Brahma Loka, he must return to repeated birth and death. Although life in Bharatvarsha in its lower planetary system is very short, one who lives there can elevate himself to full Krishna consciousness and achieve the highest perfection. Even in this short life, by fully surrendering unto the lotus feet of the Lord. Thus one attains Vaikuntha Loka, where there is neither anxiety nor repeated birth in a material body. So again, the glories of Bharatvarsha is given here. And it's given by the demigods. And they're saying even Brahma Loka, living in Brahma Loka is not worth it. This is further confirmation of the statement by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Bharat Bhumite. I don't know how many times Prabhupada has quoted this verse in this chapter. One who has taken birth in the land of Bharatvarsha has a full opportunity to study the direct instructions given by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita and thus finally decide what to do in this human form of life. One should certainly give up all other propositions and surrender to Krishna. Krishna will then immediately take charge and relieve one of the results of past sinful life. Aham tvam sarva papebhya mokshashyami maushacha. Therefore, one should take to Krishna consciousness as Krishna himself recommends. Man mana bhav madhbhakta madhyaji namaskaru. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer me obeisances. This is very easy, even for a child. Why not take this path? One should try to follow the instructions of Krishna exactly, and thus become fully eligible to be promoted to the kingdom of God. One should go directly to Krishna and engage in service. This is the best opportunity offered to the inhabitants of Bharatvarsha. One who is fit to return home back to Godhead is no longer liable to the results of karma, good or bad. So again, they're glorifying the life in Bharatvarsha. It's even better than Brahmaloka because what's the point on living in Brahmaloka for millions and billions of years? Short life, a very short life in India, in Bharatvarsha. One can live there, elevate himself to full Krishna consciousness, and go back to the Vaikuntha Loka. So that is more beneficial, and it's, as Prabhupada said, it's very easy, very conducive to become Krishna consciousness in Bharatvarsha. Outside, it's not at all easy. Na yatra Vaikuntha katha sudhapaka, na sadhu bhagvatastad ashrayaha, na yatra yageshamakha mahotsavaha, suresha loko api na vai sasevyatam. An intelligent person does not take interest in a place, even in the topmost planetary system, if the pure Ganges of topics concerning the Supreme Lord's activities does not flow there, if they are not devotees engaged in service on the banks of such a river of piety, or if there are no festivals of Sankirtan Yajna to satisfy the Lord, especially since Sankirtan Yajna is recommended in this age. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the land of Bharatvarsha, specifically in Bengal, in the district of Nadia, where Navadvip is situated. It is therefore to be concluded, as stated by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that within this universe, the earth is the best planet, and on this planet, the land of Bharatvarsha is the best. In the land of Bharatvarsha, Bengal is still better. In Bengal, the district of Nadia is still better. And in Nadia, the best place is Navadvip, because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared there to inaugurate the performance of the sacrifice of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, because Nadia, district of Nadia, Navadvip is better, best place, because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared there to inaugurate the chanting of holy names, congregation chanting of holy names. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is always accompanied by his very confidential associates, such as Sri Nityananda, Sri Gadadhar, and Sri Advaita Acharya, and by many devotees like Sri Vas. They are always engaged in chanting the holy name of the Lord and are always describing Lord Krishna. Therefore, this is the best among all the places in the universe. The Krishna consciousness movement has established its center in Mayapur, the birth site of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to give men the great opportunity to go there and perform a constant festival of Sankirtan Yajna, as recommended herein, Yajnesha Makha Mahotsava, and to distribute prasad to millions of hungry people hankering for spiritual emancipation. This is the mission of the Krishna consciousness movement. So basically, Prabhupada had started this Krishna consciousness movement. The center is in Navadvip, the head office is in Navadvip, Mayapur. And the idea is to have a constant festival of Sankirtan Yajna all over the world and distribute prasad. And that's what Prabhupada said. This is what this movement is for. Millions of hungry people hankering for spiritual emancipation. The soul is really looking for this. They don't know where to find it, and where's a bona fide thing, where's a real authentic thing, where to find it. Chaitanya Bhagavat confirms this as follows. One should not desire to be elevated even to a place in the heavenly planetary systems if it has no propaganda to expand the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No trace of Vaishnavas, pure devotees of the Lord, and no festivals for spreading Krishna consciousness. So no festivals. And that is why Prabhupada established so many festivals in ISKCON. Practically every month there are 2 or 3 big festivals. And this is just to give people a chance. Those who are already devotees, so they enjoy these festivals in a different consciousness. But those who are not newcomers, they come and they just get wonderful vibration by attending these festivals, and they get attracted. Chaitanya Bhagavat confirms this as follows. Oh no, this way only. It would be better to live perpetually cramped within the airtight bag of a mother's womb, where one can at least remember the lotus feet, than to live in a place where there is no opportunity to remember his lotus feet. So we saw that how in 3rd canto, where Lord Kapil Dev was explaining how baby in the womb of his mother, he prays to Krishna. If his consciousness is properly situated, he prays to Krishna, please get me out of this miserable place and I will I'll do your bhakti, I'll remember you, I'll do your bhajan. So Prabhupada is saying it would be better to live perpetually, always live in the mother's womb, than to come out and live in a place where there is no opportunity to remember his lotus feet. I pray not to be allowed to take birth in such a condemned place. That's what Chaitanya Bhagavat says. Similarly, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is inaugurator of the Sankirtan movement, anyone who performs Sankirtan to please the Lord is very, very glorious. Such a person has perfect intelligence, whereas others in the ignorance of material existence. Of all the sacrifices mentioned in the Vedic literatures, the performance of Sankirtan Yajna is the best. Even the performance of 100 Ashwamedh sacrifices cannot compare to the sacrifice of Sankirtan. According to the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, if one compares Sankirtan Yajna to other yajnas, he is a Pashandi, an infidel, and is liable to be punished by Yamaraj. There are many Mayavadis who think that the performance of Sankirtan Yajna is a pious activity, similar to the performance of the Ashwamedh Yajna and other such pious functions. But this is a Nam Aparat. Chanting of the holy name of Narayan and chanting of other names are never equal, despite what Mayavadis think. So Sankirtan Yajna is so powerful, and by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who propagated it, it has even become more powerful because the mercy of Mahaprabhu is there. And this Sankirtan Yajna, as Prabhupada has explained, it's not equal to Ashwamedh Yajna. Chanting of one holy name of Krishna, one Hare Krishna Mahamantra can give 1,000 times more benefit than Ashwamedh Yajna. That's how powerful chanting is. Because it can give prem, Krishna prem. No other yajna in the world, past, present, future, can give Krishna prem than Sankirtan Yajna. That's how powerful it is. But, like Prabhupada said, if we perform it to please the Lord, so yajna, sacrifice, means sacrifice is sacrificing our energy, our time, our money, our efforts, everything to please the Lord. Then it is real Sankirtan Yajna. So anyway, if somebody performs this Yajna, he is really benefited, and not just him, anybody who hears it gets benefited. Prapta nirijatim tvihi ye cha jantavo jnana kriya dravya kalapa samvritam navayate ranna punarbhavayate bhuyo vanoka iv yanti bandhanam. Bharatvarsha offers a proper land and the circumstances in which to execute devotional service, which can free one from the results of jnana and karma. If one obtains a human body in the land of Bharatvarsha, with clear sensory organs with which to execute the Sankirtan Yajna, but in spite of this opportunity, does not take to devotion service, he is certainly like liberated forest animals and birds that are careless and are again bound by a hunter. So if one does not take or make full utilization of his birth in the land of Bharatvarsha, then it's like it is said that it's like forest animals or birds that are careless, and if they are kept open, but they still get caught. In the land of Bharatvarsha, one can very easily perform the Sankirtan Yajna which consists of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. Or one can perform other methods of devotion service, such as Smaranam, Vandanam, Archanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, and Atma Nivedam. In Bharatvarsha, one has the opportunity to visit many holy places, especially Lord Chaitanya's birth site and Lord Krishna's birth site, Navadvip and Vrindavan, where there are many pure devotees who have no desire other than to execute devotional service. And one may thus become free from the bondage of material conditions. Other paths, such as the path of Gyan and the path of Karma, are not very profitable. Pious activities can elevate one to higher planetary systems, and by speculative knowledge, one can merge into the Brahman existence. But that is not real profit. For one has to come down again, even from the liberated condition of being merged in Brahman. And certainly one must come down from the heavenly kingdom. One should endeavor to go back home, back to Godhead. Otherwise, there is no difference between human life and the lives of jungle animals and birds. Animals and birds also have freedom, but because of their lower birth, they cannot use it. Taking advantage of all the facilities offered him, a human being who has taken birth in the land of Bharatvarsha should become a fully enlightened devotee and go back home, back to Godhead. This is the subject matter of the Krishna consciousness movement. The inhabitants of places other than Bharatvarsha have facilities for material enjoyment, but they do not have the same facility to take to Krishna consciousness. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has advised that one who has taken birth as a human being in Bharatvarsha must first realize himself as a part and parcel of Krishna. And after taking to Krishna consciousness, he must distribute this knowledge all over the world. Again, Prabhupada is quoting the same words. He didn't quote the words, he just went to the translation, Bharat Bhumite Manusya Janma Hailacha. And if taking birth in Bharatvarsha, one does not work on self-realization, then it's like a forest animal to be taken away by the hunter. He's given freedom, but he doesn't utilize his freedom properly. So this is how pious and powerful it is to take birth in Bharatvarsha. And actually we see, I don't know if Prabhupada said this or I've heard it from Prabhupada's disciples. In India, the bhakti is only like, you just scratch the skin and the bhakti is there. You just scratch the surface and the bhakti is there. And those who have taken birth outside Bharatvarsha really have to dig deep to make them a devotee. But even if living in Bharatvarsha, we don't take up the process, it's real wastage of life. And we waste our life, waste our time for some material benefits. Everywhere we go, companies, corporates, or big businesses, or even if we interview some college students, school students, nobody says, I want to be a devotee of Krishna. They'll always say, I want to be millionaire and billionaire, and I want to have this and I have that. I want to achieve this and attain this and this or that position or this or that company. It's like running after $1 billion. What is the use if somebody gives me $1 billion just for 1 second? It doesn't do any good? No. Only bad effect of that will be I'll get attached to it. Although it's there for just for 1 second, that's it. And he takes it away. So So any material prosperity, achievements we have, or we may endeavor for, or we can get, basically they last in the, if we look at our lifetime, after lifetime, the whole life of Brahmaji, and if we looked at 80, 90 years, even if we, not even 80, 90 years, we might have it just for less than that. It's just a flash, a second. And anything that we have is in eternity, in compared to eternity, it's nothing. It's not for any long time. But any advancement made in Krishna consciousness will remain with us forever. That's how powerful Bhakti Yoga is, and Bharat Varsha is the one that gives us that opportunity to attain that easily. In India, even if we go to a person who's atheist and who's Mayavadi, or anybody that you go to, anybody, if you give him prasad, he will still extend both of his hands and to take the prasad very, respectfully. And after that, maybe his consciousness is still the same. Maybe he'll argue the same way, but he will still honor the prasad, respect the prasad. So that culture is there. Of course, many people are running away from that now, but that is actually our mistake, fault on our part that we are not preaching properly. Just like I remember when we were going to South India and we were in the train, and in our bogie we were doing kirtan in our area, and then 2 seats later there were a few people. They were playing cards. And they started yelling at us that you guys are making too much noise. So they were a little upset, and I went to them and I gave them prasad, and everybody took prasad. Everybody stopped their card game. They took prasad. They continued, carried on. And I said, well, whoever takes the prasad, he will win. And everybody took prasad. I don't know who won that game, but that was the thing. Although they were upset that we were making sound, but they took the prasad. So this is the power of Bharatvarsha actually. Text 26. Yashwadhya barhishi bhagasho haver nirussamishtam vidhimantra vastutah eka prithang nama bhi rahuto muda grinati purna swayam ashisham prabhu. In India, Bharatvarsha, there are many worshippers of the demigods, various officials appointed by the Supreme Lord, such as Indra, Chandra, Surya, all of whom are worshipped differently. The worshippers offer the demigods their oblations, considering the demigods part and parcel of the whole, the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts these offerings and gradually raises the worshippers to the real standard of devotional service by fulfilling their desires and aspirations. Because the Lord is complete, He offers the worshippers the benedictions they desire, even if they worship only part of His transcendental body. So demigod worshippers, the shloka says, gradually they raise to the standard of devotion service. So it's okay. Even if somebody is worshipping demigods, it's okay. It's not the best, but it's okay. Slowly, they'll come to the right point. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls are under the protection of the divine nature. Krishna says in 9:13 Bhagavad Gita. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of God, original and inexhaustible. Mahatma, advanced devotees worship only the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Others, however, who are also sometimes called Mahatmas, worship the Lord as Ekatvena Prithakvena. In other words, they accept the demigods as different parts of Krishna and worship them for various benedictions. Although the devotees of the demigods thus achieve the desired results offered by Krishna, they have been described in Bhagavad Gita as Hritajnana, not very intelligent. Krishna does not desire to be worshipped indirectly through the different parts of his body. Krishna wants direct worship, direct devotional worship. Therefore, a devotee who directly worships Lord Krishna through staunch devotional service, as recommended in Srimad Bhagavatam, is very quickly elevated to the transcendental position. Nevertheless, devotees who worship the demigods, the different parts of the Lord, receive the benedictions they desire because the Lord is the original master of all benedictions. If anyone wants a particular benediction for the Lord to award, it is not at all difficult. So Krishna can award all benedictions, but those who still want to go through demigods, it's okay. They receive the benedictions from the Lord only because everything comes from Krishna. And they make slow progress towards pure devotion service. Satyam dishatir arthitam arthito nidam naivarthato yat punararthita yataha swayam vidatte bhajtam anichyatam ichha pidhanam nij pad pallavam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead fulfills the material desires of a devotee who approaches him with such motives, but he does not bestow benedictions upon the devotees that will cause him to demand more benedictions again. However, the Lord willingly gives the devotee shelter at his own lotus feet, even though such a person does not aspire for it, and that shelter satisfies all his desires. That is the Supreme Personality's special mercy. Now, for a devotee, it's a different story. The devotees mentioned in the previous verse approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead with material motives. But this verse explains how such devotees are saved from those desires. Srimad Bhagavatam advises a kama sarva kamava, means whether one is freed from all material desires, is full of material desires, or desires to become one with the Supreme, he should engage in devotional service. In this way, not only will the devotee's desires be fulfilled, but the day will come when we'll have no other desire than to serve the lotus feet of the Lord. One who engages in the service of the Lord with some motive is called a sakam bhakta, and one who serves the Lord without any motive is called akam bhakta. Krishna is so merciful that he turns a sakam bhakta into an akam bhakta. A pure devotee and akam bhakta who has no material motives is satisfied simply to serve the lotus feet of the Lord. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Yam labdhva chaparam labh. If one engages in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord, he does not want anything more. This is the highest stage of devotion service. The Lord is so kind even to a sakam bhakta and motivated devotee that he satisfies his desires in such a way that one day he becomes an akam bhakta. Dhruv Maharaj, for example, became a bhakta with the motive of getting a better kingdom than that of his father. But finally he became an akam bhakta and said to the Lord, Swamin Kritarthasmi Varam na yachami. My dear Lord, I am very much satisfied simply to serve your lotus feet. I do not want any material benefits. Sometimes it is found that a small child eats dirty things, but his parents take away the dirty things and offer him a sandesh or some other sweetmeat. Devotees who aspire for material benedictions are compared to such children. The Lord is so kind, he takes away their material desires and gives them the highest benediction. Therefore, even for material motives, one should not worship anyone other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One must fully engage himself in the devotion service of the Lord, so that all his desires will be fulfilled, and at the end he can go back to Godhead. This is explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita as follows. It says, Anya Kami, a devotee may desire something other than service to the lotus feet of the Lord. But if he engages in Lord Krishna's service, Krishna gives him shelter at his lotus feet. Even though he does not aspire for it, the Lord says, he is engaged in my service, but he wants the benefit of material sense gratification. Such a devotee is like a person who asks for poison instead of nectar. This is his foolishness. But I am experienced, Krishna says, why should I give such a foolish person the dirty things of material enjoyment? It would be better for me to give him shelter at my lotus feet. I shall cause him to forget all material desires. If one engages in the service of the Lord for sense gratification, the result is that he ultimately gets a taste for serving the lotus feet of the Lord. He then gives up all material desires and wants to become an eternal servant of the Lord. So this is what Krishna does. So that's why it is said Krishna does not give us what we want, he gives us what we need. But it's not that he cannot fulfill our material desires. He can easily fulfill. And whatever he wants to fulfill, he will fulfill. Not just fulfill. He can give more than what we can desire also. But at the same time, he gives shelter at his lotus feet. Because he knows this is what the devotee really wants. But he just ignorant. He doesn't know what he wants, what he needs. So this is the special mercy of Krishna actually. Yadi atra na swarga sukhavasheshitam svishtasya suktasya kritasya shobhanam tena janabhe smritim janma nasayam varshe harir yad bhajatam sham tanoti. We are now living in the heavenly planets, undoubtedly as a result of our having performed ritualistic ceremonies, pious activities, and yagyas, and having studied the Vedas. However, our lives here will one day be finished. We pray that at that time, Hare Krishna, please make sure you keep yourself muted. Prabhu, I have to stop and mute you again and again. We pray that at that time, if any merit remains from our pious activities, we may again take birth in Bharatvarsha as human beings to remember the lotus feet of the Lord. The Lord is so kind that he personally comes to the land of Bharatvarsha and expands the good fortune of its people. So this is the prayer of the demigods. That if any merit, Hare Krishna, whoever's Galaxy A30s, please keep yourself muted. I have to mute you again and again. So if any merit, they're saying, if any merit remains from our pious activities, we may again take birth in Bharatvarsha as human beings, able to remember the lotus feet of the Lord. So this is their prayer. It is certainly as a result of pious activities that one takes birth in the heavenly planets. But from those planets, one must nevertheless come down again to earth. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, even the demigods must return to earth to work like ordinary men when the results of their pious activities expire. Nevertheless, the demigods desire to come to the land of Bharatvarsha if even a small portion of the merits of their pious activities remains. In other words, to take birth in Bharatvarsha, one must perform more pious activities than the demigods. To take birth in Bharatvarsha, one must perform more pious activities than the demigods. In Bharatvarsha, one is naturally Krishna conscious, and if one further cultivates his Krishna consciousness, by the grace of Krishna, he certainly expands his good fortune by becoming perfect in Krishna consciousness and very easily going back to Godhead. So this is the advantage of Bharatvarsha. In many of the places in the Vedic literature, it is found that even the demigods want to come to this land of Bharatvarsha. A foolish person may desire to be promoted to the heavenly planets as a result of his pious activities. But even the demigods from the heavenly planets want to come to Bharatvarsha and achieve bodies that may be very easily used to cultivate Krishna consciousness. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu repeatedly says, again the same words Prabhupada is quoting, Bharat Bhumite Aila Manusya Janmajar. A human being born in the land of Bharatvarsha has a special prerogative to develop Krishna consciousness. Therefore, those already born in Bharatvarsha should take lessons from the Shastras and Guru and should fully take advantage of the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in order to be fully equipped with Krishna consciousness. By taking full advantage of Krishna consciousness, one goes back to Godhead. The Krishna consciousness movement is therefore spreading this facility to human society by opening many, many centers all over the world so that people may associate with the pure devotees of the Krishna consciousness movement, understand the science of Krishna consciousness, and ultimately go back to God. So this is the advantage of living and taking birth and living in Bharatvarsha. So one can and one should take mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, should take advantage of the mercy of Mahaprabhu and take up this process seriously. Text 2930. Translation. Sri Shukdev Goswami said, my dear king, in the opinion of some learned scholars, 8 smaller islands surround Jambudvip. When the sons of Maharaj Sagar were searching all over the world for their lost horse, they dug up the earth, and in this way, 8 adjoining islands came into existence. The name of these islands are Swarnaprastha, Chandrashukla, Avartana, Ramanak, Mandarharina, Panchajanya, Simhal, and Lanka. In the Kurma Puran, there is this statement about the desires of the demigods. Although the demigods are situated in an exalted position in the heavenly planets, they nevertheless desire to descend to the land of Bharatvarsha on the planet Earth. This indicates that even the demigods are unfit to reside in Bharatvarsha. Therefore, if persons already born in Bharatvarsha live like cats and dogs, not taking full advantage of their birth in this land, they are certainly unfortunate. So, I don't know why Prabhupada wrote this in the purport here, because that thing had ended in the previous chapter, previous verse. But here, Shukdev Goswami said that when the sons of Maharaj Sagar were searching all over the world for the lost horse, they dug up the earth. So just imagine how powerful they must be. They made 8 adjoining islands on earth. Text 31. My dear King Parikshit, the best of the descendants of Bharat Maharaj, I have thus described to you, as I myself have been instructed, the island of Bharatvarsha and its adjoining islands. These are the islands that constitute Jambudvip. So thus ends the 5th canto, 19th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, and we still have time, so we can start the next chapter. And now, few chapters, there'll be lots of figures, lots of numbers, the description of the universe. So chapter 20, entitled Studying the Structure of the Universe. Text 1. Shri Shukvacha, the great Sri Shukdev Goswami said, hereafter I shall describe the dimensions, characteristics, and forms of the 6 islands, beginning with the island of Palaksh. Text 2. As Sumeru mountain is surrounded by Jambudvip is also surrounded by an ocean of salt water. The breadth of Jambudvip is 100,000 yojans, and the breadth of the saltwater ocean is the same. As a moat around a fort is sometimes surrounded by a garden-like forest, the saltwater ocean surrounding Jambudvip is itself surrounded by a Plakshadweep. The breadth of Plakshadweep is twice that of saltwater ocean. In other words, 200,000 yojans. On Plakshadweep, there is a tree shining like gold and as tall as a Jambu tree on the Jambudvip. Now, if we remember, this Jambu tree on the Jambudvip was what, 1100 yojans, something like that, if I remember correctly. That's how tall that was. So in Plakshadweep also there is a tree shining like gold and as tall as Jambu tree on the Jambudvip. At its root is a fire with 7 flames. It is because this tree is a Plaksh tree that the island is called Plakshadweep. Plakshadweep was governed by Idmajiva, one of the sons of Maharaj Priyavrat. He endowed the 7 islands with the names of his 7 sons, divided the islands among the sons, and then retired from active life to engage in the devotional service of the Lord. Text 3 and 4. The 7 islands, Varshas, are named according to the names of those 7 sons: Shiva, Yavas, Subhadra, Shant, Shem, Amrit, and Abhay. In those 7 tracts of land, there are 7 mountains and 7 rivers. The mountains are named Manikuta, Vajrakut, Indrasen, Jyotishman, Suparna, Hiranyashtiva, and Meghmal. And the rivers are Aruna, Nrimna, Angirasi, Savitri, Suptabhata, Ritambhara, and Satyambhara. One can immediately be free from the material contamination by touching or bathing in those rivers. And the 4 castes of people who live in Plakshadweep, the Hansas, Patangs, Urdhvayans, and Satyangas, purified themselves in that way. The inhabitants of Plakshadweep live for 1,000 years. They're beautiful like the demigods. They also beget children like the demigods. By completely performing the ritualistic ceremonies mentioned in the Vedas and by worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as represented by the sun god, they attain the sun, which is a heavenly planet. So it's unfortunate when people from here, they go to space and they send the objects to Mars or Moon, and they go there and they see there is no life there. And here there's life everywhere, even on Plakshadweep. I don't know exactly where the Plakshadweep is, but it is mentioned there is life. The 4 castes of people live there and they purify themselves by bathing in those rivers. According to general understanding, there were originally 3 deities: Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva. And people with the poor fund of knowledge consider Lord Vishnu no better than Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva. This conclusion, however, is invalid. As stated in the Vedas, that Lord Vishnu is a source of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, actually. This means that the Supreme Lord, who accepts and enjoys the results of Vedic ritualistic ceremonies, technically called Ishtapurta, who maintains the entire creation, who supplies the necessities of all living entities, and whose the central point of all creation is Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu expands as the demigods known as Agni, Vayu, Surya, and Chandra, who are simply parts and parcels of his body. Lord Krishna says in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Ye api anya devata bhakta. Devotees who worship the demigods with firm faith worship me also, but not according to regulative principles. In other words, if one worships the demigods but does not understand the relationship between the demigods and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, His worship is irregular. So Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, I am the only enjoyer of ritualistic ceremonies. So Krishna and other demigods are different. They're not the same. Even Brahmaji and Shivji are not same as Krishna. So Prabhupada further said, therefore it should be concluded that Lord Vishnu, not Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva, is the supreme personality of Godhead. As a government officer is sometimes accepted as entire government, although he is actually but a departmental manager. So the demigods, having achieved power of attorney from Vishnu, act on his behalf, although they are not as powerful as he. All the demigods must work under the orders of Vishnu. Therefore it is said, Ekala Ishvara Krishna Arsambhritya. The only master is Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu, and all others are his obedient servants who act exactly according to his orders. The distinction between Lord Vishnu and the demigods is expressed in Bhagavad Gita, that those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, whereas the worshippers of Lord Krishna and Lord Vishnu go to the planets in Vaikuntha. These are the statements of the Smriti. Therefore, the idea that Lord Vishnu is on the same level as the demigods is in contradiction to the Shastras. Demigods are not supreme. The supremacy of demigods is dependent on the mercy of Krishna or Narayan. So, of course, in the shloka, Shukdev Goswami is describing about different islands or different mountains, rivers, different islands, and more description is coming in Plakshadweep. The inhabitants of Plakshadweep live for 1,000 years. And the inhabitants are beautiful like the demigods, but they are not the Supreme Lord. And they also worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ratnasya Vishnu Rupam Yat Satyas Yasyartasya Brahmanaha Amritasya Cha Mrityoscha Suryam Atmanam Im Ahiti. This is the mantra by which the inhabitants of Lakshadweep worship the Supreme Lord. Let us take shelter of the sun god, who is a reflection of Lord Vishnu, the all-expanding Supreme Personality of Godhead, the oldest of all persons. Vishnu is the only worshipable Lord. He is a Vedas, he is a religion, and he is the origin of all auspicious and inauspicious results. Lord Vishnu is even the supreme Lord of death, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Mrityu Sarv Harash Chaham. There are two kinds of activity, auspicious and inauspicious, and both are controlled by Lord Vishnu. Inauspicious activities are said to be behind Lord Vishnu, whereas auspicious activities stand before him. So adharma is behind him and dharma is before. The auspicious and inauspicious exist throughout the entire world, and Lord Vishnu is the controller of both of them. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya says, there are many lands, fields, mountains, and oceans throughout the creation, and everywhere the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped by his different names. Srila Veer Raghavacharya explains this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam as the original cause of the cosmic manifestation must be the oldest person and must therefore be beyond material transformation. He is the enjoyer of all auspicious activities and is the cause of conditional life and also liberation. The demigod Surya, who is categorized as a very powerful jiva or living entity, is a representation of one of the parts of his body. We are naturally subordinate to powerful living entities, and therefore we can worship the various demigods as living beings who are powerful representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although the worship of the sun god is recommended in this mantra, he is worshipped not as a Supreme Personality of Godhead, but as his powerful representative. So the inhabitants of Lakshadweep, they are worshipping properly. Although they worship sun god, but they know who's Vishnu and what's the relationship between sun god and Vishnu. As described in this chapter, the inhabitants of 5 islands, beginning with Lakshadweep, worship the sun god, moon god, fire god, air god, and Lord Brahma, respectively. Although they engage in the worship of these 5 demigods, however, they actually worship Lord Vishnu, the super soul of all living entities, as indicated in this verse by the word Pratnasya Vishnu Rupa. Vishnu is Brahma, Brahma Amrit Mrityu, the supreme Brahman and the origin of everything auspicious and inauspicious. He is situated in the heart of everyone, including all the demigods. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Kamastasta Jnana. Those whose minds are distorted by material desires surrender unto the demigods. People who are almost blind because of lusty desires are recommended to worship the demigods to have the material desires fulfilled. But actually, those desires are not fulfilled by the material demigods. Whatever the demigods do is done with the sanction of Lord Vishnu. People who are too lusty worship various demigods instead of worshipping Lord Vishnu, the super soul of all living entities. But ultimately, it's Lord Vishnu they must worship because he is the super soul of all demigods. And whatever material benefits, benedictions we get by worshipping demigods is actually provided by Vishnu or Krishna himself. But as Prabhupada mentioned earlier, so those who worship demigods, they gradually, slowly, they make progress. So anyway, we'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, some beautiful chapters are coming further after this. So, like studying the structure of universe, the movement of sun, orbit of the planet. This is something I was really interested in.
There'll be lots of figures.
Yeah.
Lots of numbers and mind-boggling numbers, actually. How is it possible? But
Absolutely.
that's what it is.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji. Prabhuji, we read that, in fact, people who are very pious and were very, very fortunate, they take birth in Bharatvarsha. So, one is this Bharatvarsha is specifically India or the entire earth, Prabhuji? What I understood is Bharat is India only, na?
Well, now Bharatvarsha has become only India. Earlier it was whole earth.
And then, Prabhuji, if they are so fortunate and if they were so pious to have taken birth in India, how is it that there are still people who kind of don't even follow Bhakti path or recognize Krishna, or in fact, don't even are Aryans? Little controversial, na Prabhuji?
Well, the independence is still there. What can you do? But it's very conducive to do bhakti living in India. That's what is also true.
True, Prabhuji, in fact.
Yeah. And see so many temples, so many holy places, sadhus, so many things are there.
People, majority, Prabhuji, for example, before coming in contact with ISKCON devotees and before, in fact, reading Srila Prabhupada books, We were also going to temple and now looking at those temple practice, so हमें तो लगता है जो हम यहाँ पे पढ़ रहे हैं all karm kand and stuff. I don't know. In fact, I might be wrong because I have no qualification. But हमारे इंडिया में भी तो there are numerous temples, but hardly anywhere they preach or they do chanting, etc. क्योंकि पहले भी हम temple जाते थे, nowhere it used to happen. Hanumanji temple and Shivji temple have plenty of them, but Vishnu temple or Krishna temple तो इक्का दुक्के मिलते हैं.
Yeah, but at least they're there. That is there to make us grow slowly. Coming to pure devotion service, or coming to devotion service, it's not easy. It's very, very rare. So at least go one, even if one worships demigods, it's okay. Karma kand is better than no following nothing.
True, Prabhuji. True. And we are so fortunate, Prabhuji. Srila Prabhupada has actually saved us.
Yep,
Hope
yep,
is-
that's what it is. That's what it is.
थोड़ा तो hope है, Prabhuji, at least. And we are fortunate you are doing classes for us, तो थोड़ा थोड़ा और hope बढ़ते जा रहा. Thank you, Prabhuji.
I'm also fortunate. I'm learning every day something new.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, we heard about Rishabh Dev sometimes back, and I'm also reading Bhagavatam Hindi version. So, just curious to know why that Ajgar Roop he has taken. What kind of message Lord is trying to give by those Leela?
That was to show us full surrender to the Lord. That was to show full surrender to the Lord.
But Prabhuji, he himself was the Lord. I mean, he was
yeah, but he was playing the part of a king, and as a self-realized soul, he was showing how a self-realized soul should live. I mean, not everybody can adopt the Ajagar Vritti, but it was like full surrender should be there. And we cannot imitate activities of Rishabh Dev, just like Prabhupada mentioned that you cannot make a stool so fragrant that it will make everything auspicious. About what, 80 miles, 10 yojan, it is said. So that is not, we cannot imitate him, but it is just to appreciate, just to understand what was Rishabh Dev's mood and his position also.
Yes, true, Prabhuji. And one more question coming in mind, like regarding Vasudev, like Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, who is the actual Vasudev? Because this mantra has started by Dhruva, some Dhruv, Maharaj Dhruv, and he was before Dwapar Yuga. And I also read in the Bhagavatam that Virat Purush, once Vasudev entered, then only he alive. So there were so many god and demigod into that Virat Purush. So just wanted to just curious to know, is it because we normally know that Krishna is Vasudev because he is a son of Vasudev. That was the understanding earlier.
Well, Krishna is known as Vasudev, yes, son of Vasudev. Yes, but it's not that just because Krishna came in Dwapar Yuga to perform his pastimes, he did not exist before. He's the supreme personality of Godhead.
True, Prabhuji.
People knew about Krishna always. He's there from the beginning. Everything comes from him. People know that. Narad Muni gave this mantra to Dhruv Maharaj. Narad Muni knows who Krishna is. So, and it's also not that Ram, Krishna, Narasimha, they don't exist before their appearances, before their pastime. They just come to perform their pastimes from their loka and then to go back. That's all. They are all transcendental, always existing. And Vasudev is also, like you mentioned about the universal form. So Vasudev is also one who's in the transcendental position. Vasudev Sattva. So both ways, it is true. So it depends how one wants to take this mantra to Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vasudev is the name of Krishna. So those who are devotees of Krishna, they say it's of Krishna.
Yes, true, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
You're welcome. Chalo, I guess we can stop here. Any other question or comment? Okay, so you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Krishna.